So during the UFC 323 broadcast, we got some fight announcements, and I absolutely love every single one of these fights, man. 3 outstanding matchups. They are absolute bangers, and this is really good matchmaking by the UFC, right? And I've been up here criticizing the UFC and, expressing my concerns heading into the Paramount era, which, by the way, I want to be very, very clear. I am very excited for the Paramount era because all those people that seem to think that the UFC got paid, so they're just going to coast and put the thing in cruise control and, we're just going to be getting horrible fights. That's just not what the case is going to be, in my opinion, man. I think the UFC has a newfound energy here, and if you think that Paramount, who just backed up all the racks to get the UFC over to their platform, is just going to accept bad fight nights and bad numbered events, I just don't think that is going to be the case, man. And we've had some, questionable title fight bookings, which has kind of gotten us off to a rough start, looking into 2026. But man, outside of those questionable title fight bookings, which by the way, those are all still amazing fights. They're just not maybe the fight that should be happening. These are outstanding matchups, man. The matchmaking from top to bottom has been really, really good from what we have seen from the UFC. I think recently we've seen some really, really good bookings, and these are 3 amazing fights. So in this video, I'm going to break down all 3 of these fights and give my early predictions because I'm really excited for these, man, right? For a fight night, February 21st, we got Sean Strickland versus Anthony Hernandez. The winner of that fight just might fight for the title. And once I explain to you why I believe that, I think that you're going to sit there and go, that actually makes a lot of sense, Jake. So we're going to discuss that. I'll break down the fight and let you know, kind of where my head is at right now. And then on the Volkanovski versus Diego Lopez 2 card, which, that fight is an absolute disgrace, but we got 2 amazing fights added to it, right? And again, Volk versus Lopez, it's a banger, just not the fight that should be happening. But Dan Hooker versus Benoit Saint-Denis. How about Dan Hooker getting back into the mix? Just got easily destroyed by Arman Tsarukyan, is already back before Arman gets another fight since Arman is basically being alienated from the weight class. And then we have BSD coming back off of an amazing quick knockout win over Beniot Dariush at UFC 322. I like the activity from Benoit Saint-Denis and Dan Hooker as well because Dan was away for a while. And then we got an absolute filthy banger in the lightweight division. When I say filthy, filthy in a good way, man. And this is a striker's delight, possibly, right? We'll discuss that when I break it down, between Rafael Fiziev and Mauricio Ruffy. Was this an undeserved opportunity for Mauricio Ruffy? We'll discuss that as well, man. So if you can't tell, I'm very excited for this. Like I said, important banger matchups. I feel like these are some crossroads fights for some of these guys, and we got some dudes that are really trying to make some waves and kind of get themselves closer to a title opportunity. These are some big fights, man. So we're going to start with Strickland, then we'll get to the Hooker BSD fight, and then we will end with Ruffy and Fiziev. I love this fight. I think that this is outstanding matchmaking right here by the UFC. And I've been saying that I think the middleweight division is on fire right now. I think that it is one of the best divisions in the UFC right now without question. I got welterweight at 1, and maybe middleweight is that number 2. I don't know. It's definitely one of the best weight classes right now. The problem with middleweight that we have is now that Khamzat Chimaev is the champion, which I think is a great thing because he's one of the biggest stars in the sport, and everybody, loves tuning into a Khamzat Chimaev fight. He's my favorite fighter, so I'm a little bit biased, but at the end of the day, Khamzat's a massive star. But the problem that we're having, which I guess is kind of a good problem in a way, and not at the same time, is everyone is questioning who the hell can go out there and compete with Khamzat. Have we really ever had much of a case like that when a guy becomes a champion where it's like, it just feels like we don't have a lot of hope for the guy that's going to go in there and fight Chimaev? Given what we saw Khamzat just do to a guy like DDP, he made DDP look like an amateur out there. There were just that many levels shown when it came to the ground game of Khamzat. He's a true specialist. And now, in my opinion, we have a possible number 1 contender fight here at middleweight. Now, I believe that Nasruddin Imavov is going to be fighting Khamzat Chimaev in 2026. I believe that is going to be the next fight for Khamzat, and that is an amazing fight. And I think that Nasruddin is honestly the hardest fight for Khamzat at middleweight right now. And I think a close second would be Anthony Fluffy Hernandez, because at the end of the day, styles make fights. But the reason that I say that I think that this is, a case to where the winner of this fight gets a title shot, Fluffy Hernandez is on a hot streak, right? And stylistically, he's one of those guys that when people look for, someone that could possibly be a troubling stylistic matchup for Khamzat, Fluffy is the name that comes to the forefront, right? He's a guy that's got crazy cardio, outstanding grappling, improved striking. Even though I think that Fluffy is being massively overrated, I think that he is still very, very good. But I'm not quite sure what you think that he's going to do to Khamzat Chimaev, because Khamzat is essentially better than him in every single aspect of mixed martial arts. And we just saw him go a hard 5 rounds with a guy like Dricus du Plessis. So now that we saw Khamzat go 25 minutes, to me it just raises all these questions. However, I still believe that Fluffy is a challenge for Khamzat. I'm just not sure, his ground game's really, really good, but how good is it? Because Khamzat is leaps and bounds above everybody else. This is a big fight, because if Sean Strickland can go out there and beat Fluffy Hernandez, we know that him and Khamzat, they got beef. They got history. Right, Sean Strickland's been, running his mouth a bunch about Khamzat Chimaev, and the route that we're seeing the UFC go, where they're, prioritizing, business more so over who actually should be the guy that's fighting for the belt next. I don't think that it's crazy to say that if Strickland goes out here and beats Fluffy Hernandez, that he wouldn't be right in the title conversation, given that him and Chimaev, it would be a big fight. It would be a big fight in the way of the buildup, because I've made this very clear. I don't think it's a competitive fight. I think that Khamzat would run over Sean Strickland, but you never know. A fight is a fight. We've heard them train before. Khamzat Chimaev was ragdolling Strickland around. You even heard Strickland in the Schmoes interview. So to me, I'm not very intrigued to see the fight. Of course, it would be a big fight because of the buildup and the trash talk and the banter and all those kinds of things. But to say that this wouldn't potentially be a number one contender fight, I get that the UFC just throws that around now, and it's not always the case. They just kind of say it to hype the fight up. I could very much see a world where Sean Strickland goes out here, wins this fight, and gets a shot at the belt next, especially because as well, not only having that history with Khamzat, Sean Strickland also holds a win over Nassourdine Imavov, which is pretty crazy to think about it, because I think if you run that back, Imavov wins, but you never know. Strickland's one of these guys, man, you put him in there with anybody, and he just tends to cause these guys a ton of problems. Right, so he's got history with Khamzat from the training room, and he's been talking a bunch of shit about him and all that kind of stuff, so I could see that being a big fight. And then also, he has beaten Nassourdine Imavov, so if Imavov pulls up a crazy upset over, Chimaev, I think that they would probably run that back, but Strickland, he has a win over Imavov, so, he's got some history there, so this actually puts Sean in a pretty interesting position. Now, the fight here. I think that this fight is a lot closer than what a lot of people might originally think, right? Because when you see this poster, I feel like a lot of people are going to say Fluffy Hernandez by total domination, right? And why you're going to say by total domination if you're in that camp is because Sean Strickland struggles with grapplers, so you think. And at the end of the day, Sean Strickland is an easy guy to take down. Given his stance, he's a very striking-based oriented fighter, and he gets critiqued, rightfully so a lot of the time, for being a jab and teep merchant, because that's all he does, right? Marches forward, jabs and teeps. But at the end of the day, that's very effective. It's very, very effective. Sean Strickland is essentially a team in football that has an outstanding defense. He leans on the defense. Doesn't like to open up on offense, put himself in harm's way, turn the ball over, put himself in these compromised positions. That's just not how Strickland fights. He relies on defense, busting you up with a jab, and punishing you with front kicks to the midsection. I got to be honest, man, I think that might be a recipe for a disaster for a guy like Fluffy Hernandez, because as good as Fluffy is on the ground, that's where he's got to get this fight. And I know that we've seen his striking improve, and I think, like I've said before, I think Hernandez has underrated striking. I think his striking has gotten much. I'm not saying he's a world beater on the feet, but it's gotten better. And he's got relentless pressure, a crazy gas tank, amazing cardio. And what he just did to Roman Dolidze, brothering him like that, was beyond impressive. Absolutely punked him and destroyed him and subbed him. I mean, that was so impressive to do that to a big, strong guy like Roman Dolidze. But this is interesting to me, man, because Fluffy Hernandez, I've said this before, nobody likes getting hit to the body, right? You saw Marab out there eating those whippy kicks from Jan, screaming when he's getting hit to the body, right? And Fluffy Hernandez is one of those guys, he doesn't have the greatest reactions and poker face when he gets hit to the body. And I've been saying before, if someone can go out there and punish the midsection of Fluffy Hernandez and keep the fight on the feet, they're going to give themselves a very good chance to go out there and beat Fluffy. Don't forget what Kevin Holland did some years ago, and I know that was a while ago, and fighters get better and they improve. But if you watch that Michel Pineda fight, man, I'm telling you, Fluffy Hernandez does not react very well to getting hit to the body. He doesn't. And I get that nobody likes getting hit to the body. I understand that. But certain fighters are able to kind of put this poker face on to where you see it really affect Fluffy, man. And while Strickland has this striking base game to where he's straight up in the air, he's very good at checking kicks, relies on the jab and the front kicks and those kinds of things, he's a very easy guy to take down. However, keeping him down is the real challenge. And throughout Sean's career, especially at middleweight, we haven't really seen him against dominant grapplers, right? Remember when he was at 170, he got destroyed by Kamaru Usman, right? DDP was taking him down. And Dricus, I know that, people are going to be like, Dricus can't grapple. Why? Because he got dominated by Chimaev. But we saw at 185, DDP's a good grappler. He submitted Israel Adesanya. He's the only guy to do that. We've seen him take down guys like Darren Till, and I get Darren Till, but we saw him have moments against a wrestler like Derek Brunson. Like, DDP's no slouch on the ground, and he's got a submission threat, and he was not able to keep Sean Strickland down. So again, because Strickland stands straight up in the air, he's very easy to take down, but he is not an easy guy to hold down, and that's the key. But in those moments when Strickland tries to, when he gets taken down, tries to work back up, that is where Fluffy Hernandez is going to look to take his back and lock in that nasty rear naked choke that he has. And overall, I lean Fluffy Hernandez early here to get this one done. And I do believe that he is probably the better guy on the ground for sure, but Strickland's got underrated grappling, man. He really does. Just because you're getting ragdolled around and subbed in the training room by Khamzat, I think Khamzat does that to just about everybody he wants, man. Like, seriously. Khamzat is a true specialist and about as elite as it gets at what he does. And I don't think Fluffy is Khamzat. People are acting like Fluffy is the second coming of Khamzat Chimaev, man. Like he's on Khamzat's level or something. Like I'm not buying it, man. And I like Fluffy a lot. I think he's a great fighter. But I just feel like people are massively overrating this guy. And I understand that, out-grappling Brendan Allen and having moments there, that is very impressive. Especially what, Brendan Allen just did to a guy like RDR. We saw Brendan Allen take down Imavov and control him for a round. So I understand all those things. But Sean Strickland's a little bit of a different kind of matchup, man, because if you think about this, and I know, people rip on Strickland and he's controversial and says all these kinds of things, but when we're talking about the X's and O's, Sean is a difficult stylistic matchup for pretty much everybody. Who just blows the doors off Sean Strickland? I know DDP did in the rematch, but that's because Sean Strickland was mentally defeated coming into that fight. DDP already had him hit mentally coming into that fight. That's why Strickland was on the back foot running away the entire, 25 minutes. And he shouldn't have gotten the rematch anyway. It should have been Khamzat in there fighting sooner for the title than what he ended up eventually getting his shot there. So at the end of the day, Sean Strickland's a guy that likes to press the action, likes to be on the front foot, and Fluffy's one of those guys where he likes to press the action and be on the front foot, and Fluffy does not fight well moving backwards, and neither does Strickland. But I would say if a fighter's going to fight better off their back foot, I think it's Sean. He's got the jab, he's got the front kicks, and we've seen him in there against some of the best guys in the world, where we're seeing Fluffy now, a guy like Brendan Allen, a guy like Roman Dolidze. He's been in there with some good opposition, but I feel like Sean Strickland has the edge in that department. He's been fighting some of the best guys in the world, but he hasn't been in there with a guy like Fluffy that's going to push the pace with the grappling, can mix in the striking, will not get tired, and can, probably outwork the cardio of Sean. Sean's known for being the guy that, pushes a solid 25 minutes and just kind of coasts and, plays that kind of game where he drags the fight out. And we've seen Strickland go out there and batter guys to the midsection with the front kicks and be able to pepper you with the jab and just outwork you. And I think in this fight, if he could get back to his feet, stop the takedowns of Fluffy Hernandez, which I think he's going to get taken down, but it's a matter of getting back to the feet safely. If Sean can do that, I know he's basic on the feet, and he's frustrating at times because it's just jabbing and teeping. And for some reason, he doesn't sit and throw the straight right hand enough. He's got a good one. Remember when he dropped Israel Adesanya? Instead, he just, I don't get it, ducks the chin and throws these big winging ooga booga shots, and I just don't get it because they're slapping arm shots with zero power. But when Sean moves forward and dictates the pace, if he could do that in this fight, I think he gives himself a very good chance to win. So I do lean Fluffy Hernandez to win this fight. But man, I'm honestly going to rate it 55 to, I'm going to say 55% Fluffy here, like slightly over a 50% chance here, because I think that Sean Strickland can definitely win this fight, man. I really do. And I feel like for some reason, Sean's going to be massively overlooked coming into this fight. So again, where's Strickland's head at? He's got, the fame, the money. He's, been fighting for belts. And, what's his motivation to maybe get back to that area? Because if he loses this one, I don't really know kind of where he goes moving forward. And Fluffy's looking like an absolute problem. But to write off Strickland in this fight, like I just feel like a lot of people are going to do that. I don't think you can do that, man, because given Sean's style, MMA math doesn't, 2 + 2 = 5 in MMA math, man. And I'm telling you, Sean's style, I just see it being kind of a troubling matchup for Hernandez. And I know maybe I'm overthinking it, but those front kicks, the jab, that jab is a piston, man. It affects your breathing, busts up your nose, affects your breathing, swells the lips. Like, I could just see Sean battering him with the jab, stinging him with the front kicks, taking some wind out of the sail of Fluffy and marching him down and just kind of in a way breaking Fluffy Hernandez, which I know sounds crazy. So it's going to come down to who can implement their game plan, impose their will, and impose their style on the other guy. So to me, that makes for a great fight, man, and that's what I see here. So early prediction, I am going to go Fluffy Hernandez by I'll say a sub. I'll say a late round submission. I think it's a competitive fight. I think Fluffy gets to his game plan. I think that Sean will, as crazy as it sounds, Strickland has great cardio when he's in these kickboxing fights, but when he's in these grappling exchanges, he tends to slow down a little bit. So I think if Fluffy could do that, and as long as, Fluffy could deal with the front kicks, have the answers there, I think Fluffy Hernandez can find a late submission on Sean Strickland, but I think he's really going to have to work for it, man. But like I said, I could very much see Strickland going out there, battering, Fluffy to the body with those front kicks, peppering him with the jab, outscoring him, and marching him down and just outworking him and putting it on Fluffy Hernandez, man. So this is a great fight. I think that Strickland is in this fight a lot more. I just had this feeling that Fluffy's going to be a pretty big favorite coming into this one, and a lot of people are going to be just thinking that Hernandez runs him over. I don't know that that's the case, man. I think that this is a tricky stylistic matchup for Anthony Hernandez. Again, rather easy to take Strickland down because of his stance. He's straight up in the air, more of a striking-based guy, so he can be light on the lead leg, check kicks with both legs. Strickland's very defensively responsible, man. And I know Fluffy's striking is good. I don't think he's a better striker than Sean Strickland. So I think if Strickland keeps it on the feet, he peppers them, moves forward, and like I said, Hernandez, he has some bad reactions to getting hit to the body, and I think if Strickland, I think he's going to know that coming into this fight, and I could just see a world where he puts it on Fluffy and ends up just kind of melting him and outscoring him in this fight. But I am going to say Fluffy Hernandez gets this one done either by a decision, just wearing on him with the ground game, just putting that pace on him. But I think Fluffy's ground game is, I don't think that it's elite. It is dangerous enough to where he has the jiu-jitsu. We've seen Strickland do these grappling matches where he does these goofy things. I get that that's grappling, not MMA, but he does make mistakes on the ground, trying to get back to his feet to where he can strike. I could see him being a little too urgent and making a mistake, and Fluffy getting the back and finding a rear naked choke. So I'm going to say early prediction, Fluffy Hernandez by round 3, rear naked choke. All right, next, we got Dan Hooker versus Benoit Saint-Denis. Dan Hooker back pretty quick here, right? Got destroyed by Arman Tsarukyan at UFC Qatar for that fight night, and it had been a while since we had seen Dan Hooker, prior to that fight. And he was supposed to fight Gaethje, and I think it was it 313, got injured, then Fiziev stepped in to fight Gaethje, and Dan Hooker, before the Arman fight, had rattled off a couple solid wins, right? But I feel like people were blowing it way out of proportion, right? He beat Claudio Puelles, big whoop, right? Crazy fight with Gamrot, that's a good win. Right? The war with Jalen Turner, close fight, could have went either way in my opinion. Dan Hooker's getting older in his career, and while he's a guy that I think, 35? So not the oldest guy, but he's been in the fight game for a while, man. So when you're 35 and, you've been out there scrapping, putting on these wars, the damage and the miles, they catch up to you. They do. And I'm honestly worried for Dan Hooker in this fight because I believe that this is a must-win for BSD, man. And the craziest thing about Benoit is not only do I love me some Benoit Saint-Denis, look, Oscar the Grouch, man, with that face. I love BSD, man. I love the celebration. How can you not like BSD? I picked him to lose against Dustin Poirier. I thought that he was going to get exposed against Dustin because I believe that Dustin is just that good, but it's the boxing defense of Saint Denis that it scares me. It still scares me to this day because I believe that Benoit is improving every single fight, and I love that he's working with head coach Nicholas Ott, who's, Nasruddin Imavov's head coach, because I've always looked at Benoit as this guy that he has all the attributes and all the tools. He's got the grit. He's got the heart. Like, he's a warrior, man. He's an absolute savage. He just needed someone to give him the blueprints, give him a game plan, give him a mission, being like, Benoit, here's what we're trying to get. This is what we're trying to do. Here's the route. Here's what we're using. That's what Benoit needed, was guidance. And now he has it. And I feel like we're seeing the best version of Benoit Saint-Denis every single time out. He's prepared. He's coming in with game plans. He's just not out there throwing caution to the wind and just, at the end of the day, it's a fight. But I feel like he comes in a lot more prepared to these fights, man. And you're seeing it. You're seeing him, he goes out there. He was supposed to destroy Kyle Prepolek, destroyed him, made it look easy. Goes out there and stops the hype of Mauricio Ruffy and pulls off a huge upset, which was very impressive. Was landing good kicks, on the feet. Was landing some shots on the feet and just exposed the holes in Ruffy's ground game and was able to submit him. Very, very impressive because Mauricio Ruffy's very dangerous. Right, then he goes out there and starches, Benny Dariush in round number 1 in like the first exchange, right in the clinch, which is absolutely insane. Absolutely insane to be able to do that. I picked BSD by KO, but not like that. I mean, he made that look so easy, dude. So easy. And now he draws Dan Hooker, who a lot of people are going to see, Hooker got destroyed by Arman. So BSD, I don't think BSD is as good as Arman Tsarukyan, right? I feel like Arman is definitely better than BSD, but I see similarities here. And the glowing and, glaring gap with Dan Hooker's game has always been the ground game. We've seen, some decent things on the ground, some solid guard play, decent jiu-jitsu skills, but Dan Hooker can't wrestle for shit. Let's just call it what it is. And Benoit Saint-Denis, while he doesn't have the greatest defense, I feel like with a smart approach, which is head coach Nicolas Ott, they're going to be drilling positions. They're going to be really grinding and game planning for exactly how they're going to approach a long-rangey game Dan Hooker. I just see Saint-Denis marching him down, landing some big shots on the feet, stinging him, taking him down, and ultimately submitting Dan Hooker at some point in this fight. Now, I don't think that Saint-Denis makes it look as easy as Arman Tsarukyan did, but I think that Benoit Saint-Denis finds a finish, man, because out of all of BSD's fights, they all end in finish, whether he's getting finished or he's finding the finish, right? Because his 2 losses in the UFC, basically, like the 2 big ones, right? Gets butchered by Moicano, which was very surprising to me. Got destroyed on the ground by Moicano, butchered, right when it came to the, Moicano, nasty ground and pound. That was crazy that Moicano did that to BSD. And I'm like, man, BSD's just being way overhyped, I guess. Then he goes out there and reminds people, man. And we know on the feet, he's got nasty kicks to the body, nice head kicks as well. Hooker's going to be an orthodox style guy. So we got the open stance battle. So that rear kick is going to be a weapon here. I like what we saw from Saint-Denis against Dariush. Now, I know that Dariush's chin is gone. He's very chinny. He's older, right? Got the gray hair and everything. Looks like he's 52. But I think Saint-Denis, man, is just kind of a different dude at this point. I think he's honing in his skills. And like I said, the big difference, having Coach Ott as his guy, man, I just feel like that is such a perfect pairing for Benoit. And I just see the differences right away with the game planning, going out there, not just a war. Remember how he's like, I want a war. You're going to see those moments if it needs to get to that, but I think that they're trying to fight intelligently and go on a title run, and I think that he just runs over Dan Hooker in this fight. I think it's going to be more competitive because I do think that Dan is going to survive, but Hooker's one of those guys that it's either a war, Hooker's getting you out of there, or Hooker's getting finished, relatively early. That's what we see. So I could see a scenario where we see another round 2 submission from Benoit Saint-Denis. I don't think he makes it look as easy as Arman, but I do believe that Saint-Denis does put on a statement type of performance, man. I think that this is Hooker will have some moments early on the feet, but ultimately Benoit will get him down, land some good shots on him on a, durable Hooker, but yet a little bit more chinny from all the miles, all the wear and tear on the body. He's just like a good old truck, man, right? You start to get up there, you're over the 100,000 mile mark, right? 200,000. Like you just seem, it's a nice looking truck, nice looking vehicle, got some flashes, you clean it up a little bit, but at the end of the day, it's still got the miles on it. And at some point, you're just asking for problems. And I feel like that is where Dan Hooker is at in his career. I think Benoit Saint-Denis has to be the pick in this fight, but I don't think that he should just go out there and beat Dan Hooker. I think it needs to be a statement. Given where the lightweight division is right now and how I feel like they're alienating Arman Tsarukyan, for BSD to rattle off 4 in a row, beat a guy like Ruffy, take away the hype, go out there, beat, Dariush, round 1 KO, come out here and submit and dominate Dan Hooker, they give him a top 3 guy next, man. Like, he's talking like the biggest fight of his career next. Like, whether it's an Oliveira, and I would have loved a Saint-Denis Gamrot matchup. I would have loved that actually more than this stylistically, but it's still good. Anytime Dan Hooker fights, it's always fun, man. He's a savage. Benoit's a savage. Love this fight. I don't think that this is necessarily a war. I think Saint-Denis fights smart and just he's the guy on the incline while Hooker is the guy on the decline. But don't kind of lose out on Dan Hooker just because he got dominated by Arman, because I think that outside of Ilya, Arman is clearly the best guy in this weight class, and I don't think that BSD is as good as an Arman Tsarukyan. I still think BSD makes this look relatively easy, and I think he has to put a statement on this one to go on his run in the weight class to get that next big fight that I think he's going to get after this win. All right, last but not least, Rafael Fiziev versus Mauricio Ruffy. This is probably the one that, actually, I'm maybe more excited for Strickland versus Fluffy, given the stakes on that fight and the stylistic matchup there. But I'm honestly, Outside of that one, this is the fight that I'm the most excited for. And listen, I think that all the pressure is on Mauricio Ruffy in this fight. I believe that it is, right? And he has to win this fight. This is a must-win fight for Mauricio Ruffy. And I know that people, they're not going to want to go that far, and I am going that far because it is a must-win fight. Mauricio Ruffy, guys, I've been glazing this dude like crazy, right? I've been saying that, look, the two best fighting nerds, in my opinion, are Carlos Prates and Mauricio Ruffy. Forgot about John Silva. Forgot he's a fighting nerd. He's a good one, too. But in terms of the flash and the flair, Mauricio Ruffy, to me, is the guy. He is. Moves like a prime McGregor. He's got nasty, creative striking on the feet. He's very dynamic, nasty power, moves in and out of range very well. And it's the movement and the way that this guy, the way he moves in there, man, it's very special. He's got the X factor. He's got that thing when it comes to fighting inside the octagon. It's very clear to me. He's very dynamic, very, very flashy, very, very good. But he's been kind of speed ran into the rankings here, very much so. Right, you're going out there and beating, now granted, James Yontop, he was probably one of the greatest chins we've ever seen in the UFC. Not a great fighter, but crazy durability, and he missed weight, and Ruffy was throwing Patrick Mahomes no-look left hooks on the guy. You know, couldn't even KO him, but again, Yontop's as durable as it gets, was rocking him around, right? Goes out there, brutally KOs Bobby Green with a spinning heel kick, right? It was crazy. Goes out there, stunts on Jamie Malarkey. And now here he is, right? Goes in there against Benoit Saint-Denis and gets fraud checked, right? And I've thought that Ruffy's ground game would be better than what it is, but maybe that's just because Benoit Saint-Denis is on the resurgence and BSD is very good. And his ground game is very, very good. So a little too much too soon. And again, stylistically looking at it, given that Ruffy's ground game is not where maybe I thought it was, that's a bad matchup. And this on paper is a better stylistic matchup for Mauricio Ruffy. However, I honestly think that in a different way, this is harder than a BSD fight because with BSD, it's the ground game, but on the feet, BSD is not nearly as good as a guy like Fiziev, and I don't think Fiziev is bad on the ground either. He's got brick wall, iron wall, takedown defense, right? And Ruffy's not shooting takedowns here. This is the UFC looking at this saying this is a good, favorable, stylistic matchup for Ruffy, but is it? Because Fiziev went out there early in that Gaethje rematch and put him in trouble on the floor early in that fight. Took him down with ease. Put Gaethje in a dangerous spot. You know, and I'm not going to say that Ruffy, is Ruffy's, takedown defense and grappling better than Gaethje? You know, I know Gaethje is like, brother, jiu-jitsu zero, brother, right? It is. But, Gaethje at least has the wrestling background and, takedown defense is pretty decent on the side of Gaethje. And I would be willing to say from what we've seen so far, it's probably better than Ruffy. So I'm not just going to say that Fiziev's just going to go out there and have a 15-minute kickboxing fight with Ruffy. I think if Rafael's smart, he mixes in the ground game. Because if he does, I think he's going to have success there because I don't think from the Saint Denis fight to now that Ruffy has patched those holes. And I understand that Fiziev is not a world-class grappler. He's not a BSD on the ground, but man, I think Fiziev's ground game is underrated, man. Takedown defense is on point, and offensively, I mean, he's a well-rounded mixed martial artist, right? This guy's a Muay Thai guy, the Muay Thai background, trains at Tiger Muay Thai, coaches, classes over there. He is a striker through and through, and he's done a beautiful job adapting that Muay Thai style into MMA. He's a lot longer, bladed. He's built like a brick, man. He's low center of gravity, super explosive. And I picked him to upset Hanacio Bahamondes, right? That was a very interesting stylistic fight there. And I picked him to win that fight because Fiziev is fast. He's explosive. While I think that, his power is a little bit overrated, we've seen it on display, especially in the RDA fight. He's got nasty kicks to the body, good leg kicks. He's durable. Right, he has been finished in the past, but one of those was an injury to Gamrot, was finished, some years ago as well. And I think if you run that fight back, Fiziev beats that guy. I think his name was Magomed or something like that. He ended up losing to that guy. I think he beats that guy in a rematch. Rafael Fiziev is very dangerous, and people are saying that Ruffy doesn't deserve this fight. The UFC's trying to push him. The UFC also was gifting Rafael Fiziev a number of opportunities to try to break into the top of the weight class. Don't forget when they gave him the Gaethje fight the first time. Right, they gave him the Gaethje fight, which again, he stepped in on short notice, so I get that one there. They gave him a Gamrot fight, which, not a great matchup. Nobody wants to fight Gamrot because he's an annoying fighter to deal with because of the wrestling and the pressure. But then they were trying to gift him a Charles Oliveira fight recently, and then he got hurt and had to pull out. So they're giving Ruffy kind of the same kind of treatment. They got an exciting striker here, part of the Fighting Nerds camp, and he's got the it factor. He's got the X factor, moves like a prime Connor. But I got questions about Ruffy, man. And my early lean, I got to be honest, man. I like Ruffy a lot, but I'm kind of early prediction. I'm going Fiziev. I'm going Fiziev here, man. And listen, I really like Mauricio Ruffy, but I don't think that this is this, great layup for Ruffy that some people might make it out to be. Because I think that Fiziev is a better ground game than what people might think, and he's very defensively sound. And Ruffy stands very long and bladed, and he's elusive, he's rangy, he's big for the weight class, but Fiziev's a big guy as well, and he's hard to hit clean. He's got nasty leg kicks, good kicks to the body, and we saw, I know St. Denis has the takedown threat, but the kicks to the body were landing all day long, and BSD clipped him with a head kick. And Fiziev has got some lightning fast kicks, man, and he's got that, pull out of range. He's fast, man. Fast hands, switches stances very well, those snappy kicks, iron takedown defense, not like Ruffy's going to be out here shooting takedowns. This looks like a striker's delight type of matchup, but I could see Rafael mixing it up, man. And in the clinch, Rafael is better. Nasty knees, good elbows. So again, the movement, that to me goes to Mauricio Ruffy. And the hands are low, which again, there's pros and cons, right? Obviously your defense, could be, open, could be encountered. Your hands are low, you get clipped. That could be the end of the fight. But his hands are low, throws punches from odd angles. It's hard to see what Mauricio's doing, and he's very, very clever on the feet, man. Very clever. He's a sniper. Very, very creative. I love watching Mauricio Ruffy fight, man. But when I saw this get announced, I'm like, banger. But then the more I think about it, I'm like, yeah, it's a banger, but I don't know that it's this fight that a lot of people think it might be, where it's like, oh, well, we're just going to get Ruffy that top 10 win, because I think Fiziev is very skilled on the feet. We all know that. Very, very skilled on the feet. Very fundamentally sound. Doesn't really make a lot of mistakes. And that's what Ruffy capitalizes on, is you making mistakes, you extending, getting out of position to where he can counter with the right hand and throw that hook around the guard. Because Mauricio's nasty on the feet, man. He absolutely is. Nasty on the feet, but my early lean, I got this feeling that Fiziev is going to get this one done, man, because I think Ignacio Bahamondes, he's a damn good striker, and Fiziev was able to put it on him. He was. That's why I picked Fiziev in that fight. If you're just going to straight kickbox with Fiziev for 15 minutes, not a lot of guys are going to be able to do that in this weight class, man. And the big thing about Fiziev, he does slow down as the fight progresses. He does. To where I could see Mauricio kind of getting ahead, but Ruffy slows down as well. He slows down as well. So if Ruffy had this crazy gas tank, I could see him pouring it on Fiziev with the output in rounds 2 and 3. But I feel like Ruffy's almost banking on a KO in this fight. And I don't think that Rafael's the easiest guy to knock out, man. So yes, of course, Mauricio, I really got to think on this one, man, and really get into the tape and get into the X's and O's a little bit. And we'll do a more in-depth breakdown as we get closer to this fight, for all these fights, especially the Strickland one as well. But my early hunch is telling me that Fiziev pulls this one off, and I feel like he's going to be an underdog probably coming into this one, because Ruffy, the hype should still be there. Ruffy is that good on the feet. His timing is excellent, and he's a sniper. He's precise, but he relies on forcing guys to make mistakes on the feet where they overextend, they're out of position, your hands are down, and he's catching you with a counter hook. I mean, this guy's out there rolling and turning his head with shots. Like, he is filthy, man. Ruffy really is that good. But Fiziev is also that good, man. Fiziev is also that good. He's been plagued by injuries, one thing after another. But when he's healthy and he's in there, he is without question one of the best strikers in the weight class. And you could say, Ruffy's, more creative and more elusive and maybe more dangerous than Gaethje, which I don't think you can say that right now. Like, do I think Ruffy could beat Gaethje? I do, because Gaethje makes mistakes on the feet, and Gaethje's a little bit older now. But in terms of Gaethje, I mean, he causes a car wreck with guys in front of him, right? So styles make fights. Gaethje kind of can be a pretty striker, but then he gets to the phone booth and is really good in the pocket, where Ruffy is not that kind of striker. Ruffy's from range, from the outside, picking and poking, and then setting you up with a nasty counter shot. That's what we've seen so far. I love this fight. It's a banger. It's a banger, but I think Fiziev looks to grapple a little bit in this fight, and I think he'd be wise to do so, because I think he has the advantage there. And we'll see if, Mauricio has plugged the holes, on the ground, man. I saw him out there training with Izzy, Volkanovski. I love Mauricio Ruffy, man. I like both of these guys. I'm rooting for both of them in this fight. May the best man win, but my early hunch is telling me that Fiziev is actually going to pull this one off, man, because, again, think about it. Is Ruffy going to knock him out? I mean, of course he could, but I almost feel like that's what he's banking on. He doesn't have a ton of volume. He basically just kind of a seek and destroy kind of guy, trying to set you up, throw big power shots. He's not really, accumulating the volume and putting the points on the board. Fiziev does. Chips away with the leg kicks, the boxing combinations, rips to the body. I think Fiziev will be the more active fighter, and he also, I feel like, has a slight ground edge here. And both guys slow down, so it's not like Ruffy's going to pour it on as the fight starts to play out. And, I can see Fiziev starting to slow down. Ruffy starts to slow down, so who's going to want it more? This is a good fight, man. It's a very good fight. It's a banger. Don't act like Ruffy doesn't deserve this fight, because they were trying to give Fiziev this kind of treatment as well, man. And when you're a fun, flashy striker like Mauricio Ruffy, you should be pushed. You should. And if you're a dominant phenom of a grappler like a Khamzat Chimaev, you're going to be pushed, and you should be pushed. When you bring the X factor, you should be pushed by the UFC. You know, when you get matchups like this, it's not like they're giving Ruffy a top 5 guy here. They're giving him the number 9 ranked Fiziev, and Fiziev has been gifted and, gotten plenty of opportunities against the top guys in the weight class. So this is a great fight, good matchmaking. Early prediction, I lean Fiziev, man. But I don't know, I got to think on this one, because Mauricio Ruffy is damn good. But the more I think about it, think about it. Is Ruffy going to knock him out? I don't know. And if he doesn't, it feels like Fiziev is going to be able to get this one done. Amazing fight, great matchup. I got to think a little bit more on this one, but early prediction, I will say Rafael Fiziev. I'm excited for these fights, man. Really excited for this one. Excited for this one, even though I think it's pretty clear that BSD should win. This is very competitive here, and I think this one's honestly way closer than what people are going to think it is, in my honest opinion. I think stylistically, Strickland is troubling for Hernandez. Hernandez is troubling for him. That spells for a great matchup, man. I am very excited for 3 of these fights. Great matchmaking here by the UFC. But if you guys enjoyed this video, do me a favor. Please give it a like. Let me know what you think down in the comments. And if you are new, if you could subscribe to the channel, I would greatly appreciate it. See you next time.